She stepped up as my wife and handled that. And there's been many times where I've been at my lowest, and she's always been the strongest to get me back up to like, get back out there. You gotta get back out there and do what you do. Don't worry about what's happening over here. I'm gonna handle that. She just a strong black woman off the tippy. You know what I'm saying? Like.
Breaking now. The carefully crafted family image surrounding Snoop Dogg is being shaken by serious allegations spreading behind the scenes. Claims online suggest that private DNA tests were allegedly conducted, raising questions about whether the children he raised share his biological lineage. None of this has been confirmed, but sources say the situation has already caused major tension in his private life. This goes far beyond personal drama. Insiders describe it as a potential legal and financial shock that could threaten a legacy built on loyalty, fatherhood, and family unity. The timing is critical because as these rumors gain traction, word is that Snoop may be preparing for a divorce fight that could reshape how his story is viewed.
The turmoil and the stuff that I put her through in my journey on becoming successful, because I had no understanding of what I was doing her, how I was hurting her.
For nearly 30 years, Snoop and his wife Shantae were presented as a rare example of stability in hip-hop. Married in 1997, renewing their vows in 2008 after a brief split, and starring in Snoop Dogg's Fatherhood, they built a public image centered on discipline, humor, and structure. Now, people close to the situation suggest that image may not reflect the full reality. If the DNA claims ever carry legal weight, they could impact endorsements, branding, and business decisions tied to authenticity. With Shantae also serving as his manager since 2021 and overseeing major moves like the Death Row Records acquisition, the stakes are extremely high. There's a sharp sense of irony hanging over this situation. For years, Snoop Dogg has positioned himself as hip-hop's elder statesman, the calm voice of experience in a genre often known for chaos. He's leaned hard into the image of growth, wisdom, and responsibility, especially when it comes to family.
Papa Snoop. The part I love is that they all start off the same way. Like, they start off crying and kind of like distant from me. I gotta earn their trust and their love.
Will they all become a part of the business, the empire?
We're in the business of love and showing how to be parents, grandparents, and, you know, not that we perfect or that we don't make mistakes, but just giving an example of what it's supposed to look like.
In past interviews, he spoke openly about fatherhood, calling it his most important role back in 2015. He said his relationship with his kids mattered more than anything, describing it as built on being a father, a mentor, and a friend. Those words are now being replayed with a much heavier tone. If the DNA claims hold any truth, critics argue it raises uncomfortable questions about whether that image was genuine or carefully maintained for the public. That's where the speculation starts piling up. How long did Shantae allegedly know, if at all? Who else in their inner circle might have been aware? And why would anyone risk holding together an illusion that now seems to be cracking in real time? Publicly, the Broaddus family didn't fracture overnight. Snoop and Shantae have faced serious issues before, including his 2004 divorce filing, which he later called a mistake, along with long-running rumors of infidelity dating back to the late 1990s. In 1998, just a year after their wedding, Snoop welcomed a son, Julian, with Lori Hillman. He never hid that fact, but insiders claim it caused lasting strain in the marriage. Some suggest Shantae never truly moved past it, and instead became more hands-on behind the scenes. By the time she officially became his manager in 2021, she wasn't just his wife, she was deeply involved in the business. Now, with these DNA claims circulating, her role is facing more scrutiny than ever.
The few like if we really dig, I believe we're gonna find probably 3 or 4 dudes over the years that she had long-term side piece type relationships with.
What really turns up the heat here is the timing. Earlier this year, Suge Knight, the former head of Death Row Records and Snoop Dogg's one-time mentor turned rival, popped back into the conversation from prison with cryptic messages that raised eyebrows. His comments hinted at betrayal inside the Broaddus household, and at the time, most people brushed them off. In February 2024, Suge posted claims on X alleging that Shantae had been seen taking private trips to Hawaii with another man. Snoop's camp quickly dismissed it as bitter talk from an old enemy playing mind games. But now, with DNA allegations circulating, those comments are being re-examined through a darker lens. Some are asking whether Suge was hinting at something he'd heard quietly, or if this was just another calculated move in their long-running feud. Either way, the timing feels uncomfortable. His statement surfaced only months before these explosive claims began spreading, and that overlap is fueling speculation whether anyone wants it to or not.
Well, your wife's been by you for your whole
She's your high
career.
school
Your high
sweetheart.
school sweetheart. She is.
Never leave home without it.
Yeah, that's right. But how has she kind of taken you on this journey? Tell us about her.
I think my wife has been my best friend for a couple of reasons. One is that she always understood who I was and who I needed to become.
At the same time, Shantae's growing public profile adds another layer to the story. Beyond managing Snoop's career, she's built her own identity as a businesswoman. She founded Boss Lady Entertainment and helped launch ventures like the Broadest Collection, inspired by their daughter Corey's health journey. She's been a consistent presence at industry events, often appearing on her own as Snoop's public appearances became more limited. Now, insiders are questioning whether that independence reflected confidence or quiet preparation. With Snoop's empire estimated in the hundreds of millions, a divorce could trigger serious financial consequences.
You look at it, they committed fraud. They committed bankruptcy fraud. I didn't lose my company by doing anything wrong.
If Shantae is tied into contracts, licensing, or executive roles, assets could be audited, frozen, or split. For someone who spent decades turning his name into a global brand, the risk is enormous. The risk here isn't just personal, it's existential. And behind the scenes, things are reportedly getting tense. Sources claim Snoop Dogg's legal team has begun closely examining every layer of his marriage and business history, searching for what they describe as potential financial misconduct. The legal theory being floated is serious. If Shantae allegedly concealed information about paternity while negotiating contracts, shaping his public image, and managing deals under the Broadest family brand, lawyers could argue misrepresentation. If a court were to accept that argument, it could give Snoop leverage to shield major assets rather than see them divided. It's an aggressive approach, but people close to him believe it may be the only option. Without it, they fear Shantae could walk away with a significant share of everything, including portions of his music catalog and his high-profile Death Row Records assets. That concern is only growing as Suge Knight continues dropping cryptic comments on recent podcast appearances, hinting at unresolved business and old alliances that never truly disappeared. All of this makes the situation feel less like a divorce and more like a brewing corporate war. Old rivals, forgotten paperwork, and long-buried deals could resurface at the worst possible moment. What unsettles many observers is how this drama collides with wider instability surrounding hip-hop's old guard, suggesting this isn't an isolated storm, but part of something bigger unfolding in real time. Just as Snoop Dogg's personal life appears to be unraveling, his former friend and collaborator Sean Combs is dealing with a crisis of his own. A recent Netflix documentary, Sean Combs' The Reckoning, has put decades of alleged misconduct back into the spotlight, alongside a criminal case that ended in conviction. The timing has raised eyebrows, especially given how closely the two men's careers and public images have overlapped. In past interviews, Snoop openly referred to Diddy as someone who understood the pressures of fame, money, and family. Now, with both figures under intense scrutiny, many in the industry are questioning whether this is coincidence or the start of a broader reckoning for an era built on carefully managed images.
Grandson in the middle of the movie like, Papa Snoop, how she have a baby with a woman? She a woman. Oh, I didn't come in for this. Just came and watched the goddamn movie. Hey man, watch the movie. So it's like, I'm scared to go to the movies now. Like y'all throwing me in the middle. I don't have an answer.
Snoop's situation hits especially hard because it cuts directly into the brand he sold to the world. He represented stability, growth, and the idea that hip-hop's most controversial figures could evolve into responsible leaders. That contrast is what makes the fallout feel so jarring. This is the same man who coached youth football, built a mainstream cooking show with Martha Stewart, and positioned himself as rap's laid-back uncle figure. Now he's facing allegations that sound more like tabloid fiction than a legacy story. Reactions are sharply divided. Some supporters argue that if the DNA claims are true, Snoop is the victim of a betrayal that's hard to process. Others are asking tougher questions about how much he knew or chose not to confront, and whether the persona presented to fans was ever fully real. Then there's the impact on his children, all of whom built careers under the Broadest name. One followed him into music, another moved into film and entrepreneurship. One launched a beauty brand and music projects despite serious health challenges. And the most private built a career in tech. If these allegations hold weight, every deal, endorsement, and public appearance tied to that family name could face renewed scrutiny or even legal challenges. So far, the silence from Shantae is only adding gasoline to the situation. While Snoop Dogg's camp has not directly denied the DNA claims, her decision to stay quiet has left space for speculation to spiral. People are asking whether she's preparing a counter move, waiting for the right moment to speak, or already working behind the scenes with attorneys. Several insiders suggest legal teams may already be involved, quietly preparing for a battle that could eclipse anything hip-hop has dealt with before. If this divorce turns hostile, it likely won't stay private for long. Subpoenas could pull in former label executives, longtime family friends, and even figures like Suge Knight, whose history with Snoop is loaded with unresolved tension. With Snoop's empire on the line, every text message, contract, and old interview could suddenly matter. What once felt like harmless sound bites may become courtroom evidence in a public legal fight. And if these DNA claims are shaking his home life, the ripple effect on his legacy could be far more damaging than anyone expected. Right now, attention is locked on his marriage and his children. But the real fallout may come from the business side, where contracts, endorsements, and even ownership stakes in Death Row Records could be challenged or renegotiated. With Suge Knight continuing to hint at unfinished business and Sean Combs' legal troubles casting a shadow over the industry, this is no longer just a family dispute. For Snoop, it's turning into a fight for survival. And we've learned that in the weeks leading up to this scandal, he made a quiet but revealing move that may explain what's coming next. Not long before the rumors exploded, Snoop Dogg quietly removed several family photos from his social media. At the time, almost no one noticed. Now that move is being viewed as a possible early warning sign. Around the same period, Shantae began showing up to industry events alone, which only intensified whispers that the couple may have already been living separate lives. Then came the health crisis involving their daughter, Corey, who gave birth prematurely in early 2025 after a high-risk pregnancy. Publicly, the family stood united, calling it a miracle and asking for prayers. But insiders now claim that the medical emergency may have unintentionally shifted attention away from deeper issues inside the marriage. If that's true, critics argue the broadest family image wasn't just polished, it was tightly managed. That's when the questions really start stacking up. How long did Shantae allegedly know about the DNA results, if they exist at all? Was Snoop ever meant to find out, or was the truth expected to stay buried? And what about the biological fathers being speculated about online? Who are they? And did any of them have ties to the family's business or professional circles? No names have been confirmed, but the sudden lockdown around Snoop's inner circle, paired with reports that he moved out of the family mansion earlier this fall, suggests something serious is unfolding behind closed doors. When answers come, many believe they won't be quiet. At the same time, Suge Knight's recent podcast appearances have taken on a strangely prophetic tone. In one segment, he hinted that Snoop's rise was guided from the shadows, a comment some now interpret as a jab at Shantae's alleged influence. Coming from the man who once mentored Snoop during the Death Row Records era before their relationship soured, the remark has only added fuel to an already volatile situation. He spent years dropping hints about betrayals and hidden alliances, and now the timing can't be ignored. As Snoop Dogg's personal crisis unfolds, many are asking whether this is just pot stirring or if someone knows more than they're letting on. And if that's the case, what else could come out as this saga keeps unraveling? Those closest to Snoop say the emotional toll is already showing. Friends describe someone swinging between tightly controlled anger and long stretches of silence. It's a sharp contrast to the laid-back, joke-cracking image he's maintained for decades. This isn't the stress of a public beef or a business dispute. It's something deeper, the kind of pain that hits at identity and trust. For a man who built his second act on redemption, on proving that hip-hop's most chaotic figures could mature into leaders, this moment cuts especially deep. This isn't just a stumble. To some observers, it feels like a threat to the entire narrative he spent years building. How he responds in the coming weeks could shape the rest of his career. Then there's Suge Knight, still speaking from prison and sounding more deliberate than ever. His comments have begun tying Snoop's personal turmoil to the growing scrutiny around Sean Combs in a way that feels anything but accidental. Knight has never hidden his appetite for chaos. Recent podcast remarks suggest he believes Snoop's troubles are only the beginning. He's hinted that past associations, especially from the Death Row Records era and long-standing industry relationships, could soon resurface. Given his history mentoring Snoop while clashing with Diddy during the East Coast-West Coast era, his words aren't being dismissed lightly. So the question hanging in the air is unavoidable. Is this just a bitter old rival trying to drag Snoop Dogg down with him, or does he actually know something that links the Broadest family scandal to the darkest claims in the Sean Combs documentary? Either way, the fact that it's even being raised suggests Snoop's situation runs far deeper than a marriage falling apart. What's especially unsettling is how the release of the Diddy documentary appears to have set off a chain reaction in Snoop's world. The film doesn't just focus on Combs. It pulls back the curtain on an entire era of hip-hop, one where business, power, and personal behavior were often blurred beyond recognition. That era wasn't something Snoop watched from the sidelines. He was one of its biggest stars. If even part of the documentary's claims about Diddy are proven true, every artist closely associated with him during that period could face renewed scrutiny. Legal analysts note that this could mean subpoenas, depositions, or demands for old records. At worst, it could mean being named in new legal actions tied to events, parties, or relationships from decades ago. With his personal life already under strain, the last thing Snoop needs is legal pressure that places him anywhere near the same allegations that dismantled Diddy's career. But here's the angle few are openly discussing. If Snoop is meaningfully connected to that scandal, then his post-2000s reinvention comes into question. The cooking shows, the collaborations with Martha Stewart, the relaxed, elder statesman persona may not have just been growth. Critics would argue it was insulation. And in today's climate, where accountability spreads at the speed of social media, allegations like these don't fade quietly. If that narrative takes hold, it wouldn't just end a chapter. It could close the book entirely. The same fans who embrace Snoop Dogg for his humor and warmth could turn on him quickly if they believe he was connected to the same system that allegedly protected Sean Combs' worst behavior. Add Suge Knight hovering in the background, hinting at more revelations and rumors that Shantae may be positioning herself to secure control of key assets, and the situation starts to look much bigger than a personal fallout. At this point, Snoop isn't just facing the loss of a marriage or even money. He risks losing the very things that made him untouchable for decades. His legacy, his fan loyalty, and the carefully built image that turned him into one of the most widely accepted figures in music. Time isn't on his side, and history suggests that when buried truths surface, the damage can be permanent. But the story takes a darker turn when you look beyond the family drama. While public attention stays locked on his marriage and children, insiders say the real fight may be unfolding quietly in boardrooms and courtrooms. Shantae's role as his manager ties her to nearly every major deal Snoop signed over the past 20 years, from brand partnerships to his 2023 acquisition of Death Row Records. If a court were to find that personal matters influence business decisions or asset control, those agreements could be reopened, audited, or challenged. That could mean frozen accounts, suspended endorsements, and a chain reaction capable of crippling the entire operation. With his fortune estimated in the hundreds of millions, this isn't just about reputation, it's about survival. Legal analysts suggest Snoop's team may already be preparing a two-pronged legal strategy as the pressure continues to build. The strategy taking shape is twofold. First, Snoop Dogg's team is expected to argue that Shantae's alleged deception rises to the level of fraud, giving him legal grounds to shield key assets. Second, they may push to invalidate her management agreements altogether, claiming those contracts were signed under false pretenses. It's a high-risk move, but for someone who built a career on surviving pressure, outmaneuvering rivals, and reinventing himself, it may be the only option left. If successful, the case could reshape how celebrity divorces are handled when personal betrayal collides with billion-dollar business interests. Still, there's a wild card few are openly discussing. While Snoop and Shantae brace for a legal war, the rest of the industry isn't standing still. Whispers suggest former associates, label executives, and past collaborators are quietly re-examining old agreements, searching for leverage, unpaid obligations, or loose ends they can exploit during the chaos. With Suge Knight continuing to hint at unresolved business and Sean Combs' legal troubles reshaping industry power dynamics, it's hard to ignore the sense that something larger is unfolding. To some observers, it feels like a reckoning for the old guard, one where long-buried decisions are finally catching up. So where does this leave Snoop Dogg? The man who once told the world that marriage meant commitment until the very end now stands at a crossroads. His legacy, his fortune, and his family name are all at stake. The next move he makes won't just determine the outcome of a divorce, it could redefine his place in hip-hop history. If the past offers any clues, Snoop won't retreat easily. But this time, the opponent isn't another rapper or a corporate rival. It's the woman who stood beside him for nearly 3 decades. The same woman some now believe may have held more control than anyone realized. One thing is certain, this story isn't finished, and what comes next may be the most volatile chapter yet. And in Snoop Dogg's world, that reckoning may only be beginning. As lawyers quietly close in and the broadest brand teeters on the edge, one thing feels clear. These allegations don't just threaten a marriage, they threaten the legacy of a hip-hop icon built over decades. So what's really going on here? Was Shantae the mastermind behind a long-running deception? Or is this scandal only showing us one small piece of a much bigger picture? Are there truths still hidden that haven't surfaced yet? Now I want to hear from you. Drop your theories in the comments and tell us what you think is really happening behind the scenes. If this story had you locked in, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with anyone following the case. Stay tuned, because when it comes to Snoop Dogg, the next reveal could change everything. I'll see you in the next one.